right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. Very special guest. We've got Glenn from Solo Sprayers today. How are you going, Glenn?
I'm going real well, Luke. Yourself?
Great. And it's Glenn with two N's. So
That's right, mate.
Extra special, extra oomph into that name. Do you ever get, you probably get it all the time. People spell it wrong. Probably relevant to sprayers, but I don't know if I know another Glenn with two N's.
Oh, listen, it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, they could call me worse. So I'm happy with either Glenn. So,
well, I'm a sprayer. I'm a licensed spray technician, and I love all this kind of stuff and the technical side of it. And we've done another podcast, as mentioned you before, with Daniel from BA Pumps and Sprayers on the larger end. And I still feel like I've got so much to learn on the smaller end. And there's a lot of great lessons that we can learn from people like you who've been in this for a long time, because a lot of us are making a lot of bad mistakes. And so it's interesting. We'll start with kind of some what your opinions are on sprayers and all that sort of stuff. And then we'll get into the product range at Solo. And so how does that sound to you, mate?
It sounds perfect. Fantastic. Can't wait.
And look, Solo, 75 years as well, right? Like it's pretty well done for there's not many businesses, period, that last that long, but especially in such a little niche,
Yeah, listen, we kind of fly under the radar a little bit. 75 years, a German-made company. And as I was saying before, we started off around the same time as Stihl, Germany. So we kind of stayed family-orientated, still went commercial. We're still around 75 years. Back then, we used to have a range of brush cutters, chainsaws, and hedgers and whippersnippers. So we did follow that path. But now we're specialising in just in sprayers. So we're a global company. We supply sprayers all over the world: America, Brazil, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. So,
well, let's start with this. When I was earlier on in business, right, and you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're doing, and you're just trying to save a buck, I would go down to my local Bunnings, and I'm not to disparage any brand here. I can't even remember what brand I was getting. But I would go and I'd get I think it was $40 backpack sprayer back then, or $45 or something like that. And I'd have to replace it all the time, right? And I worked out after a while, I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I getting like the cost of this? And then I ended up going and getting some, higher quality brand stuff, including Solo and several others. And I have sprayers, right, that like I've got one from you guys, that the problems that you get with them are things like someone's accidentally, like I've got a Solo sprayer that has accidentally someone drove over the handle, right? And so I've got a cracked handle. It lasts that long, that's the problems that you have with them, not, the other issues. And so it happens all the time, but you must see it a lot, that people still come in, they go, how come your sprayers are so expensive, right? But it's the challenging as being someone on that side of trying to sell something. It must be frustrating.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I've been with Solo on and off for 10 years. This is my second stint with Solo, and it's not uncommon for me to walk into a produce store and or talk to a customer that's had one of our sprayers for 10, 15 or 20 years. One of the things that the Germans tend to do, they tend to over-engineer something. So whilst we talk about a 2 and 5 year warranty in sprayers, they're generally over-engineered. And if in case someone does run over your sprayer and cracks your handle, we can replace it. We've got a full range of accessories and spare parts, so we can provide that for our customers as well. So, but yeah, they do ask. You do get what you pay for. That old adage, and when we get into talking about the different types of sprays and what to look for in a good sprayer, you'll understand why, the technology that goes behind it. So there's a lot of time and effort and R&D that goes into working out burst pressure with regards to the tanks, the quality of the hose, and we can talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, but we do get asked sometimes. But what I'm seeing out there in the marketplace is more and more people have been through that runaround where they keep going back to the hardware store or Bunnings, and all of a sudden they kind of work it out and say, hang on a minute, I've now spent $150 on a sprayer when I could have just bought that $150 sprayer and have that backup and service and quality and been assured that it's value for money. So yeah.
And the other thing as well is that Solo, because it's such a big brand that's been around for such a long time, you kind of have so many different shops and obviously available online and kind of like that. That there isn't. It's not like it's a rare niche product you got to go looking for somewhere. Like it's available. If you want to find it, you can. There'll be an agricultural shop. There'll be a nursery. There'll be a hardware store somewhere that's got something there. Mower shop, things like that. So it's kind of like there's no excuse for not that I'm sponsored by you or paid by you or anything, but just the higher quality echelon of brands which you guys are included in. Like it makes so much sense for a professional because it's not just they're already going to these shops at some point anyway.
Yeah, and I think what they've tried to do is that we've got a good, better, best range in there too. So like if you are budget conscious, if you can't get our premium range, our professional range, our landscape range, we do have a home and garden range. So, but we do have a number of different sprays to suit a number of different needs. So.
What's the number one mistake you see with people who they might have bought a good sprayer, but they're returning it back for problems? My guess is that there's user abuse a lot because a lot of people don't know how to use them. So what sort of problems are we as gardeners doing that's causing our sprayer issues?
Oh, there's a few actually. I mean, listen, the wrong liquid for the wrong sprayer. I mean, generally we're around that 6.5 to 8 pH level, that neutral sort of range. If you start to get a little bit lower, you start to get into more of the acid range. And then if you get higher, you start to get into more alkaline range. So, in that slot, everyone talks about Viton seals and, everyone's got Viton, but it's not only Viton too, it's every part of that liquid that comes in contact with every component within the sprayer, the fittings, the hose, the trigger, the wand, the nozzle. So I think sometimes not understanding the severity or the harshness of the chemical or getting the quantities wrong can sometimes impact on even the best sprayers. So we have a clean line range that goes outside that scope either way. So, if I think that's probably the number one thing. It often comes up, but just not maintenance. Maintenance is a huge thing on your sprayer. You're paying good money for a good sprayer. You need to look after it. And one of the easiest things is to just flush it out each time. If you've got, and everyone wants to finish the job and pack up and have a rest, but that extra 5 minutes is just going to add that longevity to, to the sprayer. So, yeah, I think the wrong chemical sometimes. Oh, listen, people mistreat. If you're using it commercially, you're going to be times where you're going to drop it. It's going to get thrown. It's going to, it's going to get treated not that well. So, and our professional range, when you look at the thickness of the molding, the reinforced fittings, the braided hose, the robust trigger, the carbon fiber wand, so we do cater for, a little bit of roughhousing with regards to the sprayer. You get one of those cheaper sprayers, it's not going to last and it's going to make your life hard. You could be out in a job and all of a sudden it's burst something, it's cracked here, it's time, it's money. Having a good quality spray is really important, especially if you're deriving income from it. So with the pH stuff, right, is that a guide? I would say that's probably more for cleaning products, my guess would be, because some people will use them for carpet cleaning or for anything. But is there any specific products you're aware of that are problematic in the lawn and garden scene? I've also found that if your water is too high or too low, it can actually wreck some of the products as well, Yeah, it hasn't been my instance. I can't recall a time where that's been the case. Generally in your industry, there's not too many issues, from that point of view. I do see from time to time, some sprays out there where it's half stained. You can see that it's
Yeah,
whatever they've been using. It's faded the
been
tank.
burning the plastic or
It's
something. Yeah,
been burning in, yeah. So you see, and you're right. We do, our sprayers are used for pesticides in the pest industry. For fruit and berry growing, vegetables. So it is. There are a lot of uses for our sprayers, and we try to cater to everyone. But in that turf industry, there's not too much that can go wrong unless it's you know, um, as I say, it could get dropped off the truck, or there's a lot of, or run over the handle. Like sometimes that happens. So, but
yeah. It's just me. What?
I've actually mentioned that twice now. I've got to stop mentioning that.
No, it's fine. Half of this podcast is just having a laugh at me. Some of these episodes. So what then? You're talking about the quality of the tank there, and dropping it is not going to last, right? But also the quality of the hose. I found that different brands, different hoses. I even had, like, on a larger scale sprayer that I had made up. I put a different hose on, and it went brittle pretty quickly. Right, like it's just there's a different quality, and I didn't know that I was buying a cheaper hose. I just grabbed something off the shelf, But there's a lot of things like that. The quality of the rubber in the seals. You were saying there's something about that sealer brand. I never heard of that one before. You were saying everybody's got this thing or whatever. What's the
Well,
difference
everyone
between
quotes
these?
well, yeah. Well, Viton's generally the standard. And there's different qualities of Viton as well too. So everyone uses Viton, and tick here, yeah, have a look. It's got Viton, but it's not just the Viton seals that come into contact with whatever you're using within the sprayer. So I did mention FKM seals. It's a different type of seal, and EPDM seals. So depending on acids and alkalines, we would use FKM in acids and EPDM in alkalines. So it's just horses for courses. And not only that, when you start to get into some of those stronger chemicals, that's when you change the hose. That's when you need a different hose. That's when the composite of the tank is different. There's so many different types of plastics so whatever comes into contact with that along that pathway, even the nozzle, it needs to be resilient or resistant to a range of chemicals. So, and there are some like chlorine, which is just so tough, like it's just so harsh. There's not too many sprays that can spray that, even at the percentages small percentages that they're mixing. So yeah. So it comes down, the right sprayer for the right job. Yeah. So, and in our range, the 456 is such a heavy duty sprayer. The 457, they've been around a long time. They've stood the test of time. Looking at if you were to take a tank, and a pressurized tank with a pressure relief valve, it needs to be cylindrical. Anything that deviates from a circle creates a weak point. So, when you're looking at a sprayer, you'll see that sometimes they'll put some ribs in it, like a rainwater tank. So strengthening ribs. So just to deal with it. So anything that deviates from a cylindrical tube type must have some sort of reinforcing ring. So that's a good thing to look for if you're looking for something in that lower end that that you're not quite sure of. But yes, certainly it will bring different pressure points if it's not cylindrical. So, and you'll see on the knapsacks too, you'll see it around the corners, you'll see these ribs because they're strengthening points on those pressure points. So yeah.
People, if you've been enjoying this Makers Month series, we're in the second half of it now. If you've been loving that, the reality is that has only been able to happen or been able to be produced because of the Patreons. You may not know this, but the work that goes behind the scenes is insane. We've been doing sort of 11 p.m., 12 p.m. finishes pretty much every day since this series started, and a little bit before that, to be honest, as well. And here's the thing. I'm not editing these podcasts at all. We have an editor now. So it's just a sheer amount of work. If you're enjoying this and you've been listening to them, we're not getting paid by the brands. This is trying to be as unbiased as possible. And so people, if you like this series, jump on the Patreon. we need that support because at the end of the series, there won't be anything left, any money left. So going forward, we need some of that support. So people jump on if you're enjoying it. Become a patron. You become $5 a month, or you can give $5 a month, or $16.50. Now, if you say that's not within my means, totally fine. No judgment, no pressure. But if it's within your means and you are enjoying it, then go for that. Now, a way that you can support without the money is to share on social media. Help us get more people who listen, more people who watch. And anyways, I want to say thank you to those patrons because honestly, I can't handle too many more of these late nights. So thanks for supporting and paying for that editor. Anyways, let's get back in the podcast. All right, Glenn, I want to get your opinion on a bunch of things, right? Because everybody has opinions on stuff and not everybody has educated opinions on stuff. And I go on the internet and I hear people say things like, why would you ever buy a manual sprayer? The batteries are so much better. Or they'll say, oh, why would you ever have this nozzle? You know, why do you have a small boom on? You only want a single fan, you know, blah, blah, go back and forth. And they got all these opinions, pressure gauge, no pressure gauge, you know, like all this kind of stuff, right? So I want to go through one by one, and from somebody who's right in this field, who actually has an educated opinion. What are your thoughts? So the first one, battery versus manual pump. Probably the biggest question most people are going to ask when they're looking at a sprayer. Batteries are a lot more expensive. Battery sprayers are a lot more expensive. Manual pumps, they're cheaper. Why? Some people, they will say, why do you even sell manual pumps, right? Because the batteries, we know no pumping. You know, what benefit could there possibly be? What are your thoughts?
Listen, I've been selling sprayers for 10 years, and definitely battery sprayers are fast becoming the domestic spray of choice. We've got 9 batteries in our spray range. Yeah. Lithium technology has decreased the charging time. It's actually increased the usage time, and you're getting a lot more starts out of it. So there's definitely a lot of positives to that. We're generally finding that those people that have never had a sprayer before will first off go for battery because they're just used to that sort of lifestyle. Yep, that's going to be quicker. It's going to be faster. I'm going to have a spare hand free. I'm not going to get sore. Okay. I mean, they wouldn't even have thought that there was a manual sprayer there. And then there's the other side of the market that we've been dealing with since we've been distributing Solo in Australia, where you come across people that have had them for 10 or 15, 20 years plus, the same sprayer, and they just put a seal kit through, or they'll just get it maintained. And you know, we come across a lot of that. Look, our 2 best sprayers are still our manual sprayers. You know, the 475 diaphragm sprayer and the 425 piston sprayer. You know, they've been around a long time. They're still our number 1 sprayers, but 3, 4, 5, and 6, you know, they're coming in there. So there's more and more people. I think younger type of people are doing that. More so the older people are stuck with their ways, and that's what they love, and that's perfect, you know. So trying to get someone from a manual sprayer to an electric sprayer, a battery sprayer, can sometimes be a little bit challenging. I mean, I was at the Sydney flower markets earlier this week talking to one of the flower growers, and he goes, "No, you won't get me off onto a battery sprayer. He's manual through and through. You know, he uses it sparingly. He doesn't want all that pressure, that constant pressure. You know, he just wants that finesse. He wants to be able to do that, and it's part of his craftsmanship. It's a really funny kind of market, but I get what he's talking about. But then there's people that just want to, give me the pressure. That's it. Put it on charge. I'll do it in 3 weeks' time. So definitely that domestic market. But you know, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, my opinion is, for whatever it's worth, is I think when you're spraying glyphosate, especially around a lot of other plants, the more control you can have over the flow, the better it is. And the reality is that when you're spraying glyphosate or fusilade or anything else that you're putting in a garden bed like that to knock something down, whether a slasher or anything, if you want to go an organic route, the problem that you're going to find is that with a battery, they usually have, like, depending on the brand, 1 speed, sometimes 2. I don't know if there's any that have more. Obviously, some more expensive versions that have more speeds. You don't get the same control. Sometimes I literally just want it to drip out. I will literally have a couple of weeds growing, say, like in a ground cover, and they're growing through a ground cover. If I can get a single drop to land on that weed, it'll kill it. And I know that. So I'll rid all my pressure in an open area, nice close to the ground, until it's just sort of trickling out, and then just slowly open it. And I don't get drift problems from that, right? But I can also totally understand if you got 400 square meters of lawn to spray, and you put in liquid fertilizer down, so much easier not to pump, Although, if you want to get buff, no gym membership needed.
Exactly right. But and the flower grower was saying the same thing. He said, if I need to get something, it's just a little drop here, drop there. It's nothing major, because they don't want to kill the crop.
You mentioned diaphragm versus piston, right?
Yep.
What does that even mean? And what are the differences between those two?
Okay. Typically, a diaphragm pump has less pressure than a piston pump. Piston pump has more pressure. I think the number one reason I would go for a diaphragm pump is probably if I'm using glyphosate or, Roundup. I mean, and it's more from a point of maintenance and keeping the sprayer fit for purpose. Because if you don't wash it all out, it can crystallize. Once it crystallizes, it can score the bore for a piston pump. With a diaphragm you don't have that problem at all. Okay. So, but you can get up to 6 bar with a piston pump, but you'll only get 4 bar with a diaphragm pump. So that's the main difference that I see going around everywhere. Everyone. That's why I think the 475 is our number one diaphragm pump is our number one sprayer.
Right, it's more versatile, but if you needed more bar or more pressure, you sort of have to go to the piston pump.
Piston pump, yeah, it'll do 4 to 6 bar, 6 bar. So it's yeah.
I didn't even know that there was different pumps within a manual. Like I knew that there was different pumps within electronic or gasoline powered pumps, but I didn't know that there was manual pumps were even any different. So there you go. I've learned something already.
Oh, we've got a 15 litre and we've got a 10 litre as well in that diaphragm. So if it's, I think one of the things too, the difference between, we've got, 3 10 litre sprayers, 2 of them are battery. It's just people don't want to. One of the other things I see too is 16 litres. It's a lot on your back.
It is a lot.
Litres, 16 litres on your back. Most of our sprayers are around 4 kilos, so you're looking at 20 kilos plus. Just having a 10 litre knapsack, whether it's battery or manual, it's just going to save so much stress and pain. And if it starts to get too heavy, you can get the job done. And most people only fill a 15 litre or 16 litre half full. I mean, because of that, you know what I mean? So,
we'll talk about this in a minute because I've got a few more opinions I want from you. But when we get into your range, one of the things that's fascinated me, and I told you this off air, right? I haven't bought any of these yet, but I was thinking about it recently, and I was like, I've always blocked that a knapsack is the professional sprayer, and the reason is that it's so much faster when you're manually pumping to pump with one hand and spray with the other. A lot of time when you have a little 5 litre, you can have a shoulder strap or whatever, but you kind of have to put it down to pump a lot of the time. It's really awkward to pump when it's on your side. So I've never considered a 5 litre for a commercial range. And then all of a sudden I was like, hold on a second, there's battery ones now. And so, you're right. Why am I lugging around a 15 litre when I only use 3 litres of glyphosate? Or I might only be putting down, I might have a tiny little lawn I do, and I only need to put down 3 litres of liquid fertilizer. And obviously at the price point, they're less than half the price of some of these bigger ones.
Absolutely.
So if you talk about them later. What I want to talk about now, I'm going to chuck something on the screen for people, so give me a second. But a lot of people are unaware that you can have what would be called a boom. Now, it's typically people would refer to a boom as one of these massive things you put on the back of a tractor or something. Oops, you clicked the wrong button there. But you can put these little booms, and it's really common for lawn enthusiasts to have one of these double booms. So they've got 2 fan nozzles next to each other. And what's fascinating is not every battery pump has enough power to have 2 nozzles on. But what scenarios would you be wanting to put a 2 nozzle little boom on? And what scenarios would you just want your standard single wand?
Oh, listen, if you're trying to cover a larger area, definitely the two nozzle, and then for that matter, the four nozzle. So
Hmm.
it all depends on, and you are quite right. Like, you get a sprayer that can only do 2.5 bar. Well, it's not going to do a four nozzle boom. So when you're looking at some of the four nozzle booms, then you start to get up into the 417. When you need 4 bar, constant 4 bar. If you've got that
Yep.
four nozzle boom and you're using a diaphragm pump or a pit, you've got to kind of keep that pressure up. So you're going to get fluctuations. So you really need to go. This is another reason why battery is probably preferred in the boom side of things. It's because it's giving you
Yeah.
constant pressure. You've got two nozzles.
Right. Well, Glenn, one of the things that I find, yes, you cover more area with the booms, but there's two problems that I find. Right. One is we're contractors, and these things on the back of our ute, and that little joint in there, it's
Yep.
plastic, and when you
Yep.
when you don't, when you leave it around stored, fine, no worries. But when you're chucking things on the back of you, on the front of you, whatever, I've had employees snap or damage the thread there, problems with that. So it's just something to keep in mind, people, if you are going to have one, to keep it, what's the word?
Somehow protected or in a sleeve or take it off or,
correctly. Yeah, all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. But the other thing that I've had a problem with, which is quite interesting, is when it's really windy, right? The way that I've compensated for obviously if it's too windy, you shouldn't spray. But when it's a little bit windy and you're next to a garden bed and you're spraying, say, broadleaf weeds in the lawn, it'll cook, like, say, the petunias in the garden bed. I like to spray very close to the ground if I can, especially if I'm spot spraying. When you have a boom, I'm just saying this for people out there who are interested, because you may want one and you may want one spray with one spray without. But having a single nozzle, you can run nice and low to the ground, and you're not spraying a random section next to it, 60 centimeters away. So it's horses for courses, but it is a good option. And the other thing to be aware of, people, is not every brand, because I don't know why you guys do this. Well, I kind of do, but not every brand has the same thread. A lot of these different brands have different styles of thread. So not every brand you can actually put a boom on. Some of the brands just don't even stock it. So that's just something interesting there. Any other thoughts you've got on single nozzle versus boom?
No, just obviously, better to go with something that's giving you constant pressure. Just be mindful of the spray that you've got, whether it can cope with that capacity. One of the things I did want to mention is that we've got 3 different size nozzles that come with both of those booms. So orange, green, and yellow. So you can fiddle around with the rate that you're actually spraying. They definitely for areas where application, where you need more of whatever in a particular area, it's definitely going to do the job for you. So getting in, getting out. I get, you've got to be careful with your tools as well. You got to be mindful. They can break. It's a pivoting point, like there's a bit of flex there as well. So if you've got a carbon wand and a carbon twin nozzle, there is a little bit of flex there as well too. So, perhaps you could have one of our brass wands to that 2 nozzle boom to stop any flex. Yep. And so that's always something to keep in mind. With regards to threads, it's a little bit like mobile phones. Everyone's got their own little charger thing, and I guess they want to have their own specific. They've made their own thread because of whatever reason, So.
Well, the brands that care about having a boom will make the boom to suit, but some brands just don't care, and they don't have even that as an option, So it's just something worth talking about.
Yeah, I think one of the things, we've got extension wands as well too, brass wands, so carbon fiber extension wands. So we our sprays are used, as you said, in a number of different industries, and it maybe have to get spray into a gutter or the roof. So from a pest guy, so having the right amount of pressure, having the right sprayer and the right extension wand. So that's something that you'll get from us, and that's what we concentrate on too. So.
Yeah, another thing that happens is you'll have fan nozzles versus cone nozzles, and so a flat fan nozzle. We've talked about this on another podcast and things, just conversations we've had throughout all the other podcasts that talk about this kind of stuff. But your cone nozzle is the one that is adjustable. Typically, you can open it and shut it, and
Yep.
you can. It sprays in a cone shape, and the pattern that hits the ground is a circle, basically.
Yep.
The fan nozzle sprays in a flat, straight line, and it's a straight line that hits the ground. What I find it interesting and good is when you've got the ability to change over those nozzles, because you would use a cone nozzle for tight area application, spraying something like a glyphosate, and you'd use a fan nozzle for spraying something like a bow and arrow or something like that, where you want an even application. And again, there's some brands out there, some of the cheaper brands, they may come with one nozzle and it's set. Like you can't twist on and off, which I just don't understand. So what are you seeing, or any other thoughts you've got on that side of things before we move on to the next question?
One of the things that we've got with typically our landscape and our professional range is that you do get both in when you buy the sprayer. So you will have both options to suit both purposes. Part of our accessory range, we've got a number of different nozzles and interchangeable nozzles. So we've got a brass adjustable. We've got a three nozzle where you can adjust it to a flat, a cone, or a stream. So that's just a 3-in-1 nozzle. So that's
twists, right?
Accessory as well. Yeah, just twist. It locks in 1, 2, 3. So that's one of the features as well too. But yeah, once again, horses for courses. A hollow cone, you're going to get that ring of concentrated liquid. The fan you can have either way, horizontal or vertical. So that gives you those sort of options. So
yeah, definitely. One question I've got for you is because on your higher end, more commercial sprayers, because if I was to put up, let's say this 442 here, right? It's $700. The 18-liter 417, very expensive. Some of these sprayers come with a pressure gauge. How important is that pressure gauge for a typical lawn contractor? Is that something that they really need, or is it actually a helpful thing to that we're not utilizing?
I think it's helpful. A pressure gauge allows you to calibrate the application of your product. It does come standard with the 417. It can also be fitted aftermarket to a number of our sprayers. It does help in your calculations. You've also got how fast you're going to, what pressure you've got, what nozzle size you're using, how fast you're walking. There's a lot of different variables when you're applying anything. So one of the things it does tend to do, it can sort of fault find if all of a sudden there's a loss in pressure for some reason. It could actually be a little troubleshooting device where it could actually go back. Oh, hang on a minute. Something's not right. I'm losing pressure. It could be a seal. It could be a leak in something. So it can reverse help you there. But with our 417, we do have we do have 2 settings on there. So it will give you, it's nice to know for some people, but some people don't even use a pressure gauge. So what about yourself? Do you use a pressure gauge? Do you use that? Does that come in handy for you or?
Not on my handheld stuff. Most of my lawns that we're doing, we did have one on the 417 that was also driven over, so that doesn't work anymore. But on those large areas, because the 417 is 18 liters, and so that's really good for a couple of 100 square meter lawns, just smashing them out. Big, a lot of the small lawns we're doing 50 square meters, 100 square meters, 150 square meters. But I was wondering if there's anything that I should be putting on, like maybe I'm missing something there, because I don't usually come with the actual sprayer itself.
No, and even the 442, whilst it doesn't come with a pressure gauge, and it does have 4 different speeds. So, you talk about only wanting a little bit of pressure. It's just a simple button press where you go from 1, 2, 3, or 4 bar pressure. So it is at that higher end, but it's 2nd, 3rd generation lithium. If I was to just do a comparison right now between the 417 and the 442. You look at the 447, it takes the 442 1.1 hours to charge, up to 5 hours spray time. It weighs 4.5 kilos with the battery.
Yep.
It's ergonomically designed. It's lightweight. It is 16 litres. It's got carbon fibre wand, heavy duty trigger. It's triple filtration, so you've got a filter in the strainer, filter on the pickup, and a filter in the nozzle as well too. So comparing it to the 417, you're looking at 7.8 kilos before you put a drop of liquid in it. It's 8 hours charge time. You're getting a little bit more bar on that second setting. You're getting 4.3 bar, so you're getting a little bit more pressure out of it. But 18 kilos as well. 18 litres. So when you're putting it on your back, it's 18 kilos plus 7.8. It's I mean, and if you're doing that over long periods of time, multiple days, big jobs, it can impact on, it's quite a heavy first generation type of sprayer. But I'm all over. I love the 442. I think if you're commercially using a sprayer in your business, I reckon you'd be doing well to have something like this. It's so versatile. It's lightweight, ergonomically designed, 18-volt battery, latest technology. All over that. Just love that as a unit. It is our premium sprayer. It's a professional grade, and we get a lot of guys that are using it day in, day out. Just once they've had that, they won't go back. So, yeah.
Well, it's a return on investment thing. I've told you this off air, and people have already heard me talk about some of these things in the podcast as well. But I bought maybe 3 years ago, I bought this 417. And the reason I did is at the time, there were very, very few sprayers that had the pressure to run that 2-wand situation. And it was 18 litres. So I was kind of thinking like, fantastic. This is a great option for me. However, and you're well aware of this, there was a problem with some airlocks, and I wasn't the only one who experienced this. I think some people had it, some people didn't. I can't speak for everybody. The thing is that the pump was fantastic. The pressure was great, and it had 2 speeds. And, like if I had a big area, and I used this at a retirement village where my stand-on sprayer was too big, but, hand pumping for hundreds and hundreds of square meters just didn't make sense at all. So it was fantastic, but I had a problem where we had a little bit of liquid left in the bottom, and we occasionally would get an airlock. So you end up wearing it on, when you're running out of liquid, 5 liters or so less, you'd wear it on one shoulder, and you could make it work, but it was frustrating. And what you've told me is that this sort of 16 liter is the upgrade, not direct in numbers or anything like that, but it's you've got 4 options now of power. You've got that. Was that some feedback that you were getting, and you deliberately went back to the drawing board as a business? Now, obviously, it's based out of Germany, and so I don't think you specifically were in that meeting, but is that the sort of thing that you get that feedback from people, and you've taken it to heart, and you're redesigning something to suit that market now?
I think I've only been back for 6 months, but previously when I was there, the Germans are always looking for new technology, and I think in terms of developing battery sprayers, the 417 was one of the first sprayers that were in that, as I said, first generation. It's lasted the length of time. There's been a number of different advances in the grade of lithium, the amount of charges, the fast quick time. So I think they're always looking for the latest in technology and trying to deliver the best that they can to their customers. I think because the 417's been around a long time, there needed to be a new fresh start with it. The 442 is probably one of about 4 brand new battery sprayers that they've introduced over the last 3 or 4 years. So so there has been a huge lot of R&D in that space. to bring high quality battery sprayers to market in the shortest amount of time. I don't necessarily think it might have been because there were some problems there, but I think because of the technology changing and evolving so fast, they needed to come up with a better system. Back then it was a great system, and then just over time, it's like your phone has new features, has 3 cameras, and so battery sprays are no different.
Awesome. Oh, I also like that there's a few upgrades I'm reading on here, like you have an indication of where the battery level is actually at, whereas on the 417 you sort of had to hope
or guesstimate.
Yes. Yeah, and the charge time, like you said, is very slow. So if anything ever went, I did have one time where I ran out of battery and I had to put on charge, and just to finish the job, it took about 15 minutes just to get enough charge to, to finish the last sort of bit.
Yeah, full recharge on the 417 is 8 hours, as opposed to 1.1 hours on the 442. So that's another reason I like it.
So 15 minutes of charge time would get you 1 hour of spraying time, or so, roughly speaking, based on these numbers.
Yep. And it depends on the setting too. Like if you've got it on 4 bar, you're not going to get your 5 hours. So. But yeah, it's definitely going to compare very similar to the 417. So, and I'm pretty sure, I think we're coming out with an extended or a fast charger too. So extended battery or fast charger. So yeah, so I'll have to get back to you on that, but I'm pretty sure we do have that in the pipeline. So
lots of things coming along. Let's go down to the battery range, right? I think a lot of people are well aware of the manual range that's been around for a long time, and there are uses for that. And like we talked about before, but battery operated is where the interest really is. And I want to run through a few of the options that you've got on this page, because I find that there are some things on here that I've never considered as legitimate commercial options, because they've always been hand pumped. And now I'm looking at some of these things and I'm looking, okay, hold on a second. This is interesting. First one here I wanted to talk about. We talked about this a little bit before, but you've got a 1 liter battery operated hand sprayer. It looks like a sort of beefed up Windex bottle, it's more beefy than a Windex bottle, but it's that kind of size. The thing that's fascinating, I've sprayed white wax scale several times, or any sort of hard scale. And if people are the type of people who are spraying these larger areas, large areas with these small sprayers. Sorry, I'm on my confusion. So one of the things I found really interesting is a lot of people will like me, they wouldn't have considered some of the options for sprayers because they only consider them as manual. And so, like, we have one here. It's for those listening, it's a little one-handed sprayer, 1 liter. That's it. It's think of your Windex bottle, or think of any other product like that, but more robust and battery operated. The thing that I'm really curious about this one, I mean, it's $65 to start with, so it's obviously not the cheapest option you've ever heard, because the hand ones are about $4. But here's what's fascinating. There's some of you out there like me who have sprayed for pests like white wax scale or any other hard scale. And for those who spray that, you know that if you're using an insecticidal oil, the number one thing is to get a even consistent coverage and to drench the pest. It's really hard to do that with a long, cumbersome wand, to really get into a bush to find that sort of stuff. And you actually don't need that much product because often they're only in localized areas. I was using, and I had been using, the hand pumps in some circumstances, like the little $4 ones you get at Bunnings, and they break and they're problematic and all that kind of stuff. Looking at that, I'm like, that's a really interesting option and a solution. You're also telling me that you can use it in all angles, right?
Yeah, so the pickup tube is flexible. It's got a weighted sort of filter, so if you can, it'll spray upside down as long as you like. As long as there's water in there, liquid in there, it'll spray upside down. So if you need to get into tight spaces, it's perfect for that as well. And it charges through a USB. So
awesome.
Yeah, so it's something that can really charge. You get about, I think it's about 3 hours usage, 2 hours charge time though. So
Well, 3 hours usage. I mean, for a liter. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times can you go through a liter in 3 hours?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So it's one of our biggest sellers actually. So
Really?
and you would think $65, but it's fit for purpose. People like the fact that it just doesn't. It's probably a one-off purchase over 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. It's just going to last. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say I can totally see how cleaners would want this too, right? Like if you're a cleaner and you're putting out some product and you get a couple of those, but I can see some applications where just having that in your ute and just having the small little nimble thing, obviously not for spraying lawns and you'll break your back spraying weeds bending over all the time. But it's just an interesting option. How long has that been around? Because I didn't know that it existed until I was preparing for this podcast.
I saw a version of this in Germany many, many years ago, and it wasn't released. So they had it there, and it would have been released within the last 3 years, I'd say, last 3-4 years. So, but yeah, it's you don't see too many of them, and you kind of think from a commercial point of view, you go, why would anyone want that? But it's one of those little household products or something that's going to serve a specific purpose, little niche product, and people see it and they go, oh, great. I'll grab that. So very popular product.
The next one I think will be very interesting to most people is the 10-liter battery operated sprayer, because the 16-liter we were talking about here, which is the 442, that's kind of your top of the line by the sound of it for this neck of the woods.
Yep.
That's a $700 sprayer. If you're doing a lot of work, right, and you want the pressure and that is your livelihood, like, $700 is nothing for a tool. Like, think about how much a lawnmower costs, right? But a lot of people might go, well, I don't do that much spraying. You do have the 411 and it's $245 and it's 10 liters. So that may be an option. What are your thoughts on that as being an option for a commercial contractor who doesn't do all that much spraying, but is sort of getting into it?
Yeah, you still listen. The 411 is the 10-liter version. There's a 441, which is a 16-liter version. So both very similar. Both take the same battery. 3.5 hours usage time, 2.5 charge time, 2.5 bar maximum. Lightweight yet again. Listen, for the price, for general purpose stuff, if you don't need that pressure, that's a perfect sprayer. And it comes in, as I say, the 16-liter and the 10-liter. So if weight is an issue, they're the two options there.
Can you, so you use not enough pressure to run a 2-nozzle boom off by the sounds of it?
I think you would, depending on the nozzle.
Yes,
So anywhere from 2.5 to 3, 2.5 to 3 bars is probably where you need to be if you're using the 2-nozzle boom. Yeah. So and the website, we've on that 2-nozzle boom on that product, you will see what sprayers it's suitable for. It'll tell you. So there'll be a drop-down menu, or there's some information about what sprays are suitable for the 2-nozzle boom or the 4-nozzle boom. So you can get a lot of product information from the website.
I want to move down because we talked about, so that's a 441 you mentioned just there. I'm just scrolling down. 442 we've mentioned, and obviously big price difference, but pressure and things like that going up through the roof. Now, what I'm interested is in these two products here as well. You got a 6-liter battery operated sprayer, right, which is 165 with a 406, and you have an easy 206, and there's a little bit of pricing difference, but what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking of is a lot of us contractors, you're spraying multiple products, but you're not actually doing that much, so 6 liters will cover most products for 100 square meters, right? So there might be a lot of people out there that may be doing some applications where they go, I wouldn't mind having, say, a 10 or a 16 liter, but 3, 6 liters for small applications of certain products. Which one of these two options, the 406 or the easy 206, is a better option for a commercial contractor? They're both battery, they're both 6-liter.
Listen, I'd say the 206 is probably my go-to. It's made in Germany, as opposed to the other which is made in China. But the German model that you see, the 206, it takes the same battery as the 411 and the 441. So if you did have, so you've got that interchangeability. So if you've got, if you say you went with a 441, the 16 litre, that battery will fit 206. Now, it's got a great carry handle and a carry strap as well too. It's got a bigger inlet, bigger lid, a bigger inlet as well too. So, and as I say, it's 6 litres. So you're not standing there with your 7 litre and you're trying to pump it, get the pressure. You got to stop your job. You're just walking along and banging it out. So you don't have to stop. So it allows you to get to your next job quicker. As you say, 3 or 4 of those and specific chemicals in each is perfect. So. And they're on special at the moment too. Perfect.
They are $20 off, and so it's a $200 sprayer, or $195 normally, $175 now, which is only $10 more expensive than the Chinese equivalent in the range. So I mean, it's very interesting. And a side note, also you get a Solo, free Solo.
Stubby? Is it a stubby holder?
Stubby holder. yeah. I don't know why that's what me so long to remember.
Well, you know why we put a stubby holder there, because you got one in free. So
true.
For a glass of water, Pepsi Max,
course,
whatever. So.
Exactly. Definitely not beer or spirits or anything else that on the
No, nothing like that. No, we don't do that. No. So,
although if you want an artistic event at your house, get all your mates out with some spirits, give them a couple of those and some liquid fertilizer, and we'll see how the lawn looks in the morning. All right.
Oh. But,
and definitely no official recommendation from Solo.
No, not at all. No, we do not recommend that. We do not recommend that at all. So
making the brands feel awkward. Been doing that since I started the podcast. All right, but on a serious
I should have watched the previous podcasters.
No, that's it. Yeah, no. I've had some good laughs with people about falling machinery or whatever, and previous like electronic pruners cutting off thumbs or whatever. Like it's
wow,
it's lighthearted. No, we're joking. We're not suggesting people should do that, but no, I had the AEG guys on, and he had in his hand but they're in an office like you are, right? And he had in his hand the $400 battery powered pruners. I suggested that they should test it and maybe use his co-worker's thumb, because I don't have any sticks in the building. You should be, you'll be comforted to know that they went outside and got some sticks. No, on a serious note, the sprayer, interchanging the batteries. If you did buy the 10 litre that I talked about for $245 and the 6 litre, if you were to run out of battery and the other one had a little bit of charge, that's a lot of peace of mind for someone who's in a rush, or just to have 2 there. And it's again, we're definitely not talking about cheap sprayers here, but value for money in that middle section there, because the 16 litre, like we talked about, being $700 is definitely, with the 4 options and the battery status and all that kind of stuff, the power, it's a different thing. But I can definitely see if they're only wanting to use single nozzle, they're doing some lawn applications, some garden applications, those 2 together, if they've got the same battery, it would be a great pairing. And you also get a free measuring jug with the 10 litre one. You get all this stuff. These ones on sale too. We're just happening to get
it's all part of our 75-year birthday celebration. 75 years is a long time for a company to be around. So
very long time for a company to be around. I think average is less than 5 years, isn't it, for most businesses?
I'm not sure, but the last few years have been quite difficult for most businesses. So 75 years and still selling product globally, and still coming up with innovative product. It's quite something to be proud of, I think. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, being not that I'm paid by you or anything, this is just my honest opinion, that if most of the people who listen to this, and I feel like I've got a good grasp at least on most of them, I reckon that pair up there of a 6 litre and a 10 litre would probably cover most people, and they would actually sort of up their game to a professional standard of equipment. And the $40, $50, $60 sprayers that you get and that keep breaking every year, the value for money is definitely going to be there. So Now, is there anything else that's coming to mind as we're talking about these things that perhaps we've missed? Because the manual sprayers we haven't talked about at all, but I feel like people know and understand that Solo's got some good manual sprayers there. Anything else that's coming to mind as we're talking?
You mentioned funny stories. We don't have too many funny stories, but
I'm all good for funny stories.
No, listen, I was just talking to the owner early in the week, and I said, "Oh, do we have any funny stories?" And it doesn't often happen, but he was telling me how up in Brisbane, one of the guys came in with a spray, and he'd been spraying a wetting agent for concrete, and he said it's not working, blah blah blah. Yeah. So people use our sprays for so many different things. Anyway, so he's walked in there and he said, "I can't do it." Anyway, so they left it with the guys in the workshop, and they pulled it apart, and this liquid looked like tar. It got in through everything, so we managed to flush it out, and this tar ended up on our workshop floor. And so overnight the guys forgot about it. It's still there 10 years later. We cannot get it off. It's just
what was he spraying?
It was some sort of wetting agent for concrete, and I don't know whether he got the proportions right or whether he'd mixed it right, or I'm not sure, but it's a constant reminder, and they look at it up and they go, yeah, that's from that. So, but we don't get too many issues with a lot of our sprays, but yeah, sometimes that sort of thing happens. We have a little bit of a laugh. So,
well, one important thing that is underrated when talking about brands, and I guess we can finish the podcast with this kind of line of thinking, is what goes on when something goes wrong, because it's quite fascinating that you've gone to the point of taking it apart. I would find most brands would just not be bothered, to go to that effort. If I was to buy a Solo product, someone listening here buys a Solo product and something goes wrong, what's the process with the warranty? What are we like with returns and things like that?
One of the things we're renowned for is our customer service. I mean, this is my second stint with them, and I've got to say the guys in our back office do a remarkable job, from the dealers, supporting the dealers through troubleshooting and inquiries. We value a lot of the dealers' relationships with the end users, and so we understand they can quickly determine whether it's warranty or not warranty. One of the things that we do that others, it's basically a replacement straight away. There's pretty much a paperless warranty in place where we don't want the sprayer back. We're not going to send it somewhere and ask you to wait or buy another one. We understand a lot of people are using these commercially for their business. So in a lot of times we'll take a photo, we'll send it back up to head office, but it's generally a replacement warranty, and you're on your way. A lot of the times we don't necessarily want that sprayer back. So we end up giving it to the customer or the dealer, and you can use that for spare parts. So it's one of those things. It doesn't happen that often, and we can say that. So, but when it does, a company's always measured by when things go wrong, and turning a negative into a positive is something we're really proud and we strive to do. So when something does happen, you've got the confidence that we'll replace it. We'll get you back on the road without any hassle. And 9 times out of 10, we'll give you that sprayer back. We will take some photos. Every spray that we have has a serial number, so we can trace it back to a production run. So we can see whether this is a minor fault, or we know about it, or we don't know about it. As I say, we're a global company, so we're making sprayers, and they're being supplied all around the world. So if something's not quite right, we hear about it, and it stops in the production line. So very rarely does it happen, but when it happens, it's a simple process and pretty much hassle-free. We want the customers to be happy, and they generally are with a Solo sprayer.
I would say as well, for people listening to that, I had a chat with Ian at the Lawn Shed, and they do sell Solo stuff through the Lawn Shed. Obviously, they're a sponsor of us, so I guess indirectly we're linked through that. But the thing that's fascinating is he told me well before any of these podcasts were going to happen that they had an experience. I just talking about how his week was going, and it came up about how quickly and easily a warranty claim had been sorted by one of the Solo people, and that there had been a product purchased, and he was surprised by it. And I wasn't asking the question or anything; it was just a normal conversation happened about 2 months ago or something like that. So it's actually good to, that's just a backup there from somebody who's, obviously
nice
a distributor of the product. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, it's great feedback for us too, and it happens from the dealer, the back end staff, Solo head office. So the whole mechanism works really well. If you have a bad experience on that odd occasion, we've got to turn it around. We've got to flip it. We've got to try extra hard to make it better. So that's the mentality that we have. So
fantastic. Now, one more thing. Obviously, we've got the Launchhead is an option for people to purchase them, but where else, if someone's wanting to go have a look at one, where would they go? And is it possible for someone to do a little trial, maybe just spray some water or something like that before? Is there a place they can get their hands on, maybe not an online place?
We have a comprehensive website where we've got lots of information about how to fix sprayers, and there's lots of video there online, YouTube, how to maintain your sprayers. But we've also got a list of all of our dealers Australia-wide. So most of the dealers have quite a large range of stock. Not a lot of them have demo stock, but certainly if any of your guys were to walk into any of our dealers and want to try one of the products, definitely those dealers would get in touch with me, and then I could organise something for them. A lot of them do have them out on display, out of the box, so you can get a feel for it. But yeah, one of the things that we'd like to do is to roll out more demo models so that when you're in a store, you can actually get to see and play and feel it. So have a play with it. So I would just contact them, and if I'm happy to do that for commercial guys as well, and I have done that. We've got a number of different trials happening on the Central Coast and in Sydney. So especially with like the 442, it's a little bit more expensive. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, so people want to see what it's like. So for me, having that at a dealer for say a month, there could be 5 or 6 people that want to have that for 2 or 3 days, and just get a feel for it and bring it back. So it's one of the things that we are looking to do more of. So but yeah.
No, it sounds good, man. And look, thank you so much for coming on. And people,
that's
obviously, if you're interested, hit up the website and you can find some stuff. And man.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke. Pleasure to be here.